Why must meat and dairy be separate in Kashrut? Have you ever wondered why there is such a strong emphasis on keeping meat and dairy separate in kosher dietary laws? This practice, known as basar bichalev, is deeply rooted in the teachings of the Torah. The Torah explicitly states that one must not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. This commandment appears 3 times in the Torah, specifically in the books of Exodus and Deuteronomy. This prohibition goes beyond just cooking. It extends to eating or even benefiting from any mixture of meat and dairy from mammals. The separation is not just a guideline. It is a fundamental aspect of Kashrut, which governs what is permissible to eat for those who observe these laws. The reasoning behind this separation is multifaceted. First, the biblical origin of the law is significant. The repetition of this commandment in the Torah highlights its importance. Rabbinic authorities have interpreted this to mean that all combinations of meat and dairy should be avoided, not just the specific case mentioned. Another aspect to consider is the ethical implications. Many Jewish scholars believe that mixing meat and dairy symbolizes cruelty. Cooking the meat of a young animal in the very milk that is meant to nourish it is seen as lacking compassion and respect for animal life. This ethical perspective adds depth to the practice, making it not just a rule but a reflection of values. Historically, some commentators suggest that this law was also intended to distance Jewish practices from pagan rituals. Cooking a kid in its mother's milk was part of fertility rites in some ancient cultures. By avoiding this practice, Jewish people could steer clear of idolatrous behaviors. In practical terms, maintaining the separation of meat and dairy requires strict organization in kosher kitchens. This means using different sets of utensils, cookware, and dishes for meat and dairy. Foods are categorized into 3 groups: meat, dairy, and pareve. Pareve foods are neutral and can be eaten with either meat or dairy. Additionally, there is a tradition of waiting a certain amount of time between consuming meat and dairy products. This waiting period varies among different communities but serves to ensure proper digestion and maintain the separation. In summary, the separation of meat and dairy in Kashrut is a practice that is deeply rooted in biblical law, ethical considerations, and historical context. It shapes not only how food is prepared and consumed but also how kitchens are organized and how people approach their meals. Understanding these principles can help anyone appreciate the significance of Kashrut and the commitment it represents.